For the past year, Cameroon's military has been in a bloody battle with separatists from the English-speaking regions of the country. So far, hundreds of people have been killed, villages have been burned down, thousands of people are now displaced. But it wasn't always this way. You see, a few years ago, Anglophone lawyers, teachers, and students in Cameroon peacefully protested the dominance of French in public schools and courtrooms in English-speaking regions of the country. Those calls led to the government crackdown, one that got human rights lawyer Barrister Agbor Nkongho arrested on charges including terrorism. And it led Anglophone Cameroonians to create a country called Ambazonia to declare independence from Cameroon. Felix was released from prison. Charges against him were dropped last year. And now he's speaking at the University of Ottawa tomorrow about the humanitarian situation in Anglophone Cameroon. But first, he's with me in studio this afternoon. Hi there.
Thanks for having me.
If we go to 2016, when Anglophone lawyers and teachers in Cameroon decided to call for the strike, how did the government respond to that move?
Well, the government responded through inaction. In 2015, Anglophone lawyers met in Bamenda, common law lawyers, and we issued a memo to the government where we addressed the issues that touch and concerns us as lawyers. The government did not respond. We met in 2016 in Boya to reiterate what we had written in the memo in Bamenda. The government still did not respond. Then we decided in October to call in for some sit-in strike actions. The government still did nothing. We decided to protest, to march with our wigs, with our robes, so that we could draw the attention of the national and international community. The government met it with heavy-handedness, attacking lawyers, beating them. We marched in Boya, they seized our robes, dragged some lawyers in mud, and the situation degenerated from just a peaceful protest wherein we were clamoring for a better situation of lawyers, teachers joined the strike, and then it metamorphosed to the Cameroon Anglophone Civil Society Consortium.
Were you among those beaten?
Well, I wasn't beaten during the protest in Bamenda, but I was tear gassed. I led the protest in Boya where lawyers were beaten. We had to escape and we marched in Moyoka, the outskirts of Boya, because we were determined to peacefully protest against the assimilation of our people, the erosion of the common law.
Talk to me about that determination, because once you realize what the government response is going to be, why keep protesting? What was it that it didn't allow you to back down at that point?
Well, because the civic space was shrinking, the government just refuses the freedom of expression and assembly, and this is a combination of 56 years of repression and oppression against the people, of assimilation against the people of Southern Cameroon, and it comes a point in a man's life or the life of a people where you say enough is enough. It's high time we confront the dictator. It's high time we confront the marginalization and the injustices. And the lawyers were determined. The people of Southern Cameroon were highly motivated, notwithstanding the militarization of the zone, notwithstanding the presence of armed forces. They were just determined to go to the streets peacefully to protest.
At the same time, as a result, you were charged with terrorism, with rebellion against the state, breach of the Constitution. What was it like to hear those words in court? To be charged with terrorism, rebel, and breaching the Constitution?
You know, when you're dealing with a dictatorship and you're fighting for the rights of your people, you need to be prepared for the worst. So on 17th of January 2017, myself, the president of the Cameroon Anglophone Civil Society Consortium, Dr. Fontem, the secretary general, and a couple of others were arrested 1 hour after the consortium had been banned. We were blindfolded, we were handcuffed and blindfolded and transported to Yaoundé, wherein we faced some of the worst charges in mankind: terrorism, group rebellion, incitement of civil war, attempting to change the form of a state, spreading false information over the internet. Whenever they read the charges in court, I always looked across my shoulder. I looked at my friend Dr. Fontem. I'm like, are these charges just for us? You know, what did we really do? We did nothing wrong, you know, but the 2014 anti-terrorism law was passed into law, not to fight really terrorism, but to fight dissent, to fight those who were going to protest against the dictatorship, against the violations of rights in the country. And we were the first victim because they were used to try those accused of Boko Haram terrorism, but we were the first Anglophones to be tried in a military tribunal, contrary to the decision of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights of 2009 that clearly stated that Anglophones cannot be arrested in the southwest and northwest and taken to Yaoundé and be tried in a military court. But because it's a government that has a history of disregarding and showing disdain to the people, they didn't respect the decision or the recommendation from the African Commission.
Did you feel at that point, like the people out there who were hearing the story? I mean, I'm sure there are, obviously people on your side and admiring you for standing up. But once one is labeled a terrorist or a rebel, did you feel any of the public sentiment turning against you?
At no point in time. That was the thing. At no point in time did the people turn against us. And Francophones started understanding us. I used to watch TV. Francophones started speaking for us, even the French media, because at no point in time the Cameroon Anglophone Civil Society Consortium, of which I was a leader, at no point in time did we call for violence. At no point in time did we call for the attack of individuals and institutions. At no point in time did we pitch it against Francophones. It was a movement, it was a protest against the institutions of the state. So we had the legitimacy of the people, we had the high moral ground, and that is why till date, most people would speak about us in a very favorable manner because we never preached violence. We knew that we had to protest. We used the law. We were fighting for the people. We were not inciting violence. We did not at any point in time preach hate, but we stood our grounds, our principles, our values that the rights of the people, the injustice meted out against the people of the Southern Cameroons must come to an end.
You get released from prison. There's already this armed conflict happening between separatists and the military. What was going through your mind at that point in terms of the possibility of turning things around or of changing it? Because you've just spent this term in prison as well.
Yeah, you see, whilst I was in prison, because most of the moderate leaders had been arrested, there was a kind of a vacuum. And the movement was led by others who were articulating for the release of the leaders and also to try to see how to find a solution. But gradually, it moved from a clamor for federation, which the consortium stood for, and for outright independence and separation from the La République du Cameroon. At that time, we still did not have an armed struggle. The people were peacefully protesting. But the way the government was reacting, they were arresting people, they were killing people, the people were being tortured. So it only hardened positions. But you could tell whilst we're in jail that the situation had changed drastically. Most people believe that a referendum would be a panacea to the solution. By the time we left jail, the armed struggle had really not started. There was a major protest on the 22nd of September, but it was still peaceful, where thousands of Southern Cameroonians marched in the street, protested with just leaves and olive branches that they needed their state. They wanted to restore their state. And on the 1st of October, it was the same. But the number of people that were killed, I had visited some in hospitals as a result of that. It led for the people to think that they needed to have kind of self-defense, that they would not just sit and watch while their daughters, their women were being killed, were being raped, how houses were being burned and people were being arrested. That is how it morphed into an armed struggle. But I think things took another turn when the president announced or declared war against the people of Southern Cameroon. The situation got out of control and now we are having an armed conflict.
You've also just concluded an election with continuing for another term as president. Lastly, how do you think that's going to affect the situation in English-speaking regions of the country?
After the elections, I said something that it was a sad day for democracy. It was unfortunately for the peoples of Southern Cameroon, because we believed or we thought that any other candidate who would have won the election would have created the enabling environment for us to have peace and dialogue and a negotiated settlement, would have at least released our leaders who are currently detained, would have ensured that there would be reconstruction of the villages, close to 140 villages that have been burnt, that there would be a return to the more than 500,000 internally displaced persons as a result of the crisis and the 50,000 refugees in Nigeria. But because the current president, who is partly or responsible for this problem, has not shown any will, any good faith in finding a solution, it's really dangerous. The country would have no peace because he's not ready to find a solution. So we are in a very difficult situation. We will have 7 years of more repression, more extrajudicial killings, more burning of villages, and more internally displaced persons.
Felix, thank you so much for coming in today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Felix Agbor Nkongho is a Cameroonian human rights lawyer and president of the Cameroon Anglophone Civil Society Consortium. Tomorrow, he is at University of Ottawa speaking about human rights and humanitarian situation in Anglophone Cameroon. That talk will start at 4 p.m. and we'll tweet details from CBC all in a day.